Greetings. Things and times there with you. Who want to go to high school and then to college this evening. So bear with us, stick with us, and learn something, some things. Yeah, things and times. We're there with you.
I know some of you think that you're going to be rock stars. I'm a rock star engineer. I'm a rock star professor. I'm a managing director. I'm a journalist, superstar journalist. You are superstar nothing until Africa is a superstar economy. You will never be respected as an African until the African continent has done well as a continent. I thank you so very much. There's no leader in Africa right now who's the caliber of Gaddafi, or caliber of Kwame Nkrumah. We have midgets running around as leaders, intellectually, I mean. No one. Mbeki was almost there, but not really. Kwame Nkrumah, Ben Bella. What did Kwame Nkrumah say? We as Ghanaians are prepared to surrender our sovereignty in part or in total in pursuit of African unity. The independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked to the independence of the rest of the African continent. Ben Bella, what did he say? Let us die a little so that Rhodesia can be free. Let us die a little so that South Africa can be free. These were visionaries. So what I'm emphasizing is that their vision was way ahead of his time. You know, there was a big debate between Nkrumah and Nyerere in '63. Nkrumah was saying, guys, let's move very quickly and unite and be one bloc. If you get used to being a president, you will not relinquish office. Let's move quickly before you become too comfortable in your little palace as a president. And Nyerere was saying, no, let's do it brick by brick, gradually, slowly, and then we'll get there. And Nyerere won the debate. But guess what? We lost the African integration. Because everyone now wants to be president. They will never give up. Nkrumah, Gaddafi were ready to surrender individual presidency for the collective African presidency. So, yes, they made their own mistakes, but the vision of integration was there. What we need are African leaders who understand that there's more to be gained by coming together than that which is lost. Traditional knowledge systems, we will address that matter if we start with ourselves before we engage China, before we engage the Russians, before we engage the Americans. We will say, we want a space program. What do we know about space as Africans? What are our views about space? What are our values? What does Ubuntu say? What is our knowledge system, our indigenous knowledge system? When you are proactive, when you start with thyself, know thyself, you'll be able to address that matter and actually leverage your own wisdom. Our problem is that we don't start with ourselves. We start with China. We start with India. We start with America and Europe. We never say, I'm an African. What is my belief system? I'm an African. What do I know about space? I'm an African. What are my views about space? What is the history in my continent in terms of understanding space? So very important point you are raising, and in my framework, we'll solve it because we'll start with ourselves, our history, our culture, as Africans, sometimes we undervalue ourselves. We think we can learn from Singapore, from Malaysia, from China. We can also learn from ourselves. Ubuntu. I am because we are. We are because I am. A person is a person because of other people. They don't have it in China. They don't have it in America. Not in Japan, but we have it. Collective success is more important than individual success. I am because we are. We are because I am. Lots of wisdom. Even when we devise and build our intelligent systems, we must input Ubuntu into our algorithms. The Americans can't do it because they don't know what Ubuntu is. So when we do the programming with Professor Marwala, we're going to be programming Ubuntu into computers. 4D, excellent 4D. Those 4Ds are great. Let's use them and empower ourselves. One thing I like from China, by the way, you know what he said? I hope you're listening. Because of nuclear weapons, because of the satellite program, we are very confident. We are balling out of control because we have nuclear weapons. They give us confidence. We are rock stars because we have satellites. You must understand this. And you know what the Americans are saying? We must stop the spreading of nuclear weapons. We must denuclearize. Do you know what happened in this country? South Africa, I hope you know this. When we're moving towards 1990, the Boers, South African racist regime, was working towards creating a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb. They were very close. And when Mandela and them were coming from prison, they quickly destroyed the technology and gave it to Israel. They were comfortable with the racist South African regime owning nuclear weapons, but not comfortable with an African brother having nuclear weapons. I hope you know that. So I'm emphasizing that our brothers teach us a lot. Economic power also is linked to military power. It gives you confidence. I'm not pushing for nuclear weapons. I'm pushing for satellite technology. But you must understand that when you have a satellite, when you have 2 bombs, 1 satellite, 2 bombs, the basis of Deng Xiaoping's revolution was strength. It gives you confidence that, no, you know what, if it comes to nuclear weapons, we'll nuke each other. It's called mutually assured destruction. When the Africans have nuclear weapons, no one will take us for granted because we can nuke back. No one will mess around the Chinese because they got nuclear weapons. The Russians have nuclear weapons. The French do have them. Israel does have them. So when you are powerful militarily, you are respected. But I'm emphasizing the 4Ds. 4Ds are important. And I know that's what you've spoken about them several times. That's why I'm smiling. You are very consistent, Mr. 4D. Same culture, China. Yes, that's a good point. India, same culture. Yes, the Americans, can you say the same? They came from all over. So it's a problem, but not too big a problem. Remember, the borders are artificial borders. Do you know there are more Swazi people in South Africa than in Swaziland? Is it Eswatini? What's it called? The new name now? There are more Tswanas in South Africa than in Botswana. So these borders are meaningless. Why Swaziland is Swati? Why Botswana? Yes, there is a problem, but also the borders are artificial. We can manage our cultural differences. We can work together. You know, it's not impossible. The Germans and the French fought 2 wars. The French hate the Germans. The British don't like the Germans, but they're in the EU together, although the British is running away. But what I'm saying is don't overemphasize these cultural differences. Others have been able to manage them. And our borders are not out of our choice anyway. They were created by the Berlin Conference in 1884. So yes, there are challenges around cultural differences. They're not impossible. They can be managed and mitigated. Currency exchanges. There's always a benefit in terms of economies of scale. If we had a Pan-African currency, one currency, surely we'll be able to extract better value if we're doing the deal with the RMB or the Chinese currency, as opposed to Nigeria doing it, Rwanda, Zimbabwe. So numbers make a difference. One of the major lessons from China is a lot of people, 1.3 billion Chinese working together, economies of scale. So whatever it is, there's always a benefit in terms of economies of scale. Look, when I emphasize that we don't want bilateral deals, I'm overstating my case. What I'm simply saying is that if there's going to be a bilateral deal between South Africa and China, it must be within the context of the African agenda. We're doing this as South Africa in keeping with Agenda 2063. We're doing this as Algeria because of that decision at the AU. We're doing this thing as Zimbabwe because that's what COMESA is about. That's what the SADC position is. In other words, when we relate bilaterally, it must be informed by what is good for the region, what is good for the continent. The continent must be the starting point. The AU is weak, yes, but fix it. I'm not glorifying the AU, I'm glorifying continental integration. I told you, Nkrumah lost to Nyerere. If Nkrumah had won, if Gaddafi had won, we would be in a different space. This creature called the AU is a compromise arrangement. It's a dysfunctional entity because Nkrumah lost. But however, let's start with the AU, the CFTA, the African framework, and fix what is wrong with it. But also we need leadership. That's why I was very harsh on the African leader. Without leadership, there will be no AU. But fix it. Don't abandon it. Technology has potential for abuse. This is the thing about technology, by the way. Any technology is a double-edged sword. If you're not careful, these dictators in Africa will be using satellite technology to monitor you and crush you when you go on demonstration, or oppress you, steal your votes during elections. Yes, technology plus values is what will drive our continents. Technology on its own is not the answer. It could be the problem. It could be the issue. Social media can be antisocial. The internet is supposed to connect us, but it can also divide us. There are trolls on the internet. There's cybersecurity and insecurity. So point taken. That's why we need to start with the values. Start with what we want as Africans, so that our satellites will be used for development, for economic development, not to spy on citizens or to destroy them or to oppress them. But the danger is there. Africa diaspora, very important. That's why I'm emphasizing Pan-African buy-in. Can you imagine all those African-American scientists, the African astronauts, if they're also part of our agenda, the Caribbeans, the Africans in Brazil, in Argentina, beyond the 1.3 billion on the continent, can you imagine the expertise, the cash from Oprah Winfrey, from Michael, if they were conscious? Michael Jordan, who's conscious, Obama, who's conscious, not these bankrupt ones. We have. There is scope for buy-in and ownership if we work together as Africans across the globe. And the diaspora can give us an opportunity. By the way, I believe we can even move faster than China. I said China was able to move 400 million people from poverty over 30 years. Can you imagine our strength now? There's the ICT revolution. There's the fourth industrial revolution. Economies are globally connected. If we get our act together as Africans, probably we could actually move faster in terms of poverty alleviation than China, because when they did it from 1958, 1970, 1978 to now, these things were not there. The internet was not there. Social media wasn't there. Right now, all you need is a good brain and a computer, and you can build an empire. So I want us to learn from China. China was poor like us. China is now a rock star economy. It can be done. Let us learn from them and work with them to become superstars. India, technology transfer, very important. We don't want to assemble. For example, here in South Africa, we assemble Mercedes-Benz, we assemble Ford, we assemble BM. We don't want that. Design your own car. Build your own car. Buy your own car. Can you imagine if we had to produce one truck in Africa, designed in Mpumalanga, called the Ubuntu car. And then as the AU, we decide that every government must buy 2,000. Already there's a market. We said 1.3 billion Africans. That's a market for our products. So technology transfer is very important. Don't just allow the Chinese to come and assemble, the Americans to come and assemble. Let us have the technology transferred to our people. Let us own the technology. Let us be entrepreneurs. Let us own the intellectual property beyond assembling, beyond using other people's technology. We can learn from India. We can learn from China. Don't tell me that AU is utopia. Don't look, first and foremost, the EU is doing very well. They have problems with Britain, but there is so much that has been achieved by the EU. The EU has done very well. NAFTA has done very well. ASEAN has done very well. There might be problems. Fix it, don't destroy it. There are lessons to learn from the EU, from ASEAN, from NAFTA. And by the way, you compare yourself with the Europeans. The Europeans were never colonized and given artificial boundaries. So how dare you stick your head above your hind legs and compare the AU and the EU? The borders in Africa are not ours. Germany for the Germans, Britain for the British, French for the French, and so on, and they're coming together out of their own volition. We have artificial boundaries where people were, there's Swazi people here, Swazi that side, Debele people said. So in Africa, we don't have a choice, by the way, unlike the Europeans, because those boundaries are meaningless. And in any case, it's a survival issue. We will not survive under globalization as small little countries. So yes, there are challenges, but it's not utopia. Let's work hard. Let's make it happen. Let's make SADC work, COMESA, the EAC, Maghreb, ECOWAS. Those blocks must function and the AU must work. So you can't compare the challenges of NAFTA, the challenges of the AU, the challenges of ASEAN with the African continent. We've not even tried. The AU has not even tried. The United States of Africa has not been put in place. So let's not give up the fight. Let us work together and make it happen. Do you know, our colleagues are here from Russia. You know, they destroyed the USSR at the instigation of the Americans. The Americans promoted the disintegration of the USSR. I could care less the challenges they had in the USSR. They should have fixed those problems and remain united for scale. Do you realize that the biggest war that America ever fought was to keep America together? Forget First World War. Forget Second World War. Mickey Mouse wars. The biggest war fought in America was the Civil War. The South versus the North. The America versus America. They fought a vicious war, the Americans, to keep America together. The Civil War was fought to keep America together. America is big today, 325 million people, $19 trillion GDP. That unity was not cheap to keep the United States together, was not cheap. They fought a civil war. And more people, go into Google, more people died during the Civil War in America than in the Second World War, than in the First World War in terms of Americans. Why did they do that? Dying to keep the Northern. Why did they break up? Why did they leave California to go on its own? No, California can be the third biggest economy on its own. They will never allow California to go free because they understand economies of scale. And yet they cheated the Russians, encouraged them to destroy the USSR. They encouraged little you and me to be fragmented. Shame on us. Shame on you. Madam Africa, Mr. Africa. Last question on leapfrogging. My brother, what I'm saying is, if we're clever, if we're entrepreneurial, if we're creative, some of these sophisticated technologies will be easier to apply, cheaper to apply, and more effective in our environment because of the absence of what are called legacy problems, infrastructure legacy problems, infrastructure sunk costs. Here's the illustration. London has wires, electrical cables, telephony cables, everywhere in London, in New York. Lotito has nothing. Mpumalanga, nothing. Kumasi, zip zero. So guess what? You can go wireless power, wireless telephony, wireless everything, which means it's easier because you have no legacy to protect. In London, in New York, they have to put the wireless infrastructure on top of the wires because they've invested in the wires. So they have to make sure somehow they leverage the infrastructure they have in place and make sure they don't lose much money from the investment. In Lotito, there's zero investment in wires. So we go satellite, we go wireless. Not because we are any better than them, but because we have nothing. So poverty becomes an advantage. Lack of development becomes an advantage. And I gave you an example of M-Pesa. It doesn't mean the Americans don't know how to do M-Pesa or to do EcoCash. They own the technologies. They know them better than us. But they can't commercialize it because there are so many banks. There's a bank in your bedroom. There's a bank downstairs. Why would you bank on a phone? But in a whole village, in a whole town, there's no brick and mortar bank. 80% of the people are unbanked. 80% of the people have no access to brick and mortar banking. That's poverty. But an opportunity to go mobile banking platform, an opportunity for EcoCash, an opportunity for M-Pesa. I'm saying to you, look at all those elements of the fourth industrial revolution: cloud computing, quantum computing, blockchain technologies, nanotechnologies, human augmentation, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, mechatronics and robotics. Look at them and say, isn't there a way as a poor African without infrastructure, I can actually have an advantage over Japan, an advantage over New York because of my poverty? So that's what I'm emphasizing by saying, if you are clever, if you are creative, there's an opportunity to leapfrog, to skip a generation of technology, to move from the second generation technology where we are to the fourth industrial revolution. I'm saying don't lose heart because you're poor. Don't lose heart because you have no infrastructure. It could be an opportunity for you to embrace a much more advanced type of technology. So I want to end on this point of hope and say, Africans must not lose heart. There is an opportunity for us to run where others walked. But we need to learn from China. We need to learn from ourselves. We need to work together as the continent. I thank you so very much. And by the way,
where do Africa's treasures belong? Now imagine this headline differently. Imagine if it said, where do Germany's treasures belong? So I'd like to tell a small story about a Nigerian woman who's married to a Belgian and has lived in Belgium for many years. She said once that she was shocked that her son, while being taught Belgian history, was taught nothing about Congo. They teach my son in school that he must help the poor Africans, she said, but they don't teach him about what Belgium did in Congo. Now, if her son does not learn that the modern Congo state began 100 years ago as the personal property of a brutal Belgian king who was desperate to get wealthy from ivory and rubber, If Hassan does not learn that the hands of Congolese people were chopped off with rusty axes for not producing enough resources to meet a king's greed, if Hassan does not learn that the Belgian government later ruled Congo with a deliberate emphasis on not producing an educated class, if this young Belgian boy knows nothing of these incidents, then at some point they will perhaps no longer have happened, because the past, after all, is the past because we collectively acknowledge that it is so. It is not that Europe has denied its colonial history. That would be too crude. It is instead that Europe has developed a way of telling the story of its colonial history that ultimately seeks to erase that history. The former French Prime Minister Nicolas Sarkozy gave a now infamous speech in Senegal in which he said, "I have not come to deny mistakes or crimes. Mistakes were made and crimes committed. But no one can ask of the generations of today to expiate this crime perpetrated by past generations." This is central to the story that Europe tells itself about its colonial history. It is a story that basically says, yes, colonialism happened, but. And whatever comes after the but is the focus of the story. What the focus on the but does is that it absolves. It frees Europe of responsibility, of a significant and traceable connection to the African present, and it allows Europe the glow of charity. But the truth is that the past does not merely tell us what happened yesterday, it also illuminates what happens today. If we acknowledge that present-day Europe is shaped by the Renaissance of 600 years ago, by the Enlightenment of 300 years ago, then surely we cannot say that what happened merely 100 years ago in Africa no longer matters. It matters. We are gathered today in this reconstructed palace, a beautiful place, but also a place that represents Germany's nostalgia for imperial times. When Kaiser William II lived here, German troops were killing children, women, and men in Southwest Africa. This building says that German history matters, even in a romanticized form. The history of Africa and Asia and Latin America must matter as well. We cannot pick and choose which histories and which points of view still matter, because to do this would be an ugly exercise of brute power. And speaking of power, here's a headline I just read in a German publication. The headline says, "Where do Africa's treasures belong?" Now imagine this headline differently. Imagine if it said, "Where do Germany's treasures belong?" It would be a redundant question, because of course Germany's treasures belong in Germany. But the question would never even be asked, because there would be no circumstance in which it would be, because of power. And so it seems to me that what we are fundamentally grappling with in this space, in all of these questions about the Humboldt Forum, is power. Unequal power, how we navigate unequal power relations. And there's always been, to me, something shabby about unequal power relations. The victory feels colorless, almost unearned. So I spoke of Belgium and its colonial history, but what of Germany and its colonial history? Do school children here learn about Namibia, what was called the German Southwest Africa? Do school children know that 100,000 Herero people were murdered by the Germans? Do they know of the wells that were poisoned? Do they know of the women used as slaves and others as slaves in German camps? Do they know of the Nama people and of the Maji revolt in German East Africa? And why should they know? Because to tell only one part of a story is essentially to lie. A story is true only when it is complete. Germany is Beethoven, and Germany is Bach, and Germany is also its colonial atrocities that have resulted in hundreds of African skulls being stored in the basement of museums here in Berlin, skulls of men whose spirits cannot be at rest, men who could well have been my great-grandfather had I happened to have been born in Eastern rather than Western Africa. It is only fair to fully own all of the stories of Germany. All countries have parts of their pasts that they're not proud of, that they would rather forget. But it takes courage to face those parts and bring in some light. And this is a time for courage. The courage to hear dissenting voices, such as those of the people who are outside right now protesting. They should be heard and included. They have valid concerns. The courage not merely to say, we take your criticism, but to follow it with action. The courage to say, we were wrong. The courage to say about art acquired illicitly, this is not ours. Tell us what to do with it. The courage to do provenance work and to actively use local knowledge. The courage to act and to act now and not become crippled by endless planning and endless talking. The courage to believe that it can be better. We cannot change the past, but we can change our blindness to the past. And why, by the way, is the term ethnological used for art from certain parts of the world and not art for other parts of the world? And then in discussing some of this art that we term ethnological, and I would argue that the language itself already suggests a hierarchy of value. When we talk about this art that was stolen, we're told that they cannot be returned to Africa, for example, because Africans will not take good care of them. It is not merely condescending to say, I cannot return what I stole from you because you will not take good care of it. It is also lacking in basic logic. Since when has the basis of ownership been taking good care of what is owned? This position is paternalistic arrogance of the most stunning sort. It does not matter whether Africans or Asians or Latin Americans can take care of the art stolen from them. What matters is that it is theirs. The brilliant Nigerian artist Victor Hikameno put it much better than I could, and in very Nigerian terms. He says, if I come and steal your wrapper, and I say I won't give you back your wrapper because you will not tie it properly around your waist, or you will not wash it well, and so the colors will fade, or this or that, all are irrelevant. The wrapper is mine, and I can do with it what I will. Give me back my wrapper because it is mine. The metaphorical wrapper, and for those of you who are befuddled by wrapper, it's a piece of cloth, should be returned for the reason that a Hikameno illustrates, which is respecting the property of others, but also because Europe has defined itself as a place of certain values: progress, liberty, fraternity, tolerance, individual rights, and most of all, the rule of law. A nation that believes in the rule of law cannot possibly be debating whether to return stolen goods. It just returns them. And so if the dignity of those from whom the art was stolen does not matter, then surely this idea should matter, that Europe should be what it claims to be. Live up to the ideals with which you define yourself. I should pause here and note that sometimes these conversations run the risk of sounding like empty moralizing, or like asking for the impossible or the unrealistic, or insisting on an unattainable purity and perfection. Obviously, I don't think everything should be sent back to the countries from which they came. Not everything was stolen. But those things that are sacred, those things for whom people were killed, those things that have in them the stain of innocent blood should be returned. Obviously, we do not have all the information. There are facts lost in unrecorded history, but we can draw reasonable conclusions based on information that we do have. We can deduce, for example, that the Ngonso, the beautiful sculpture of the founder and guiding spirit of the Nso people of Cameroon, the former German colony, could not possibly have been obtained under benign circumstances, because why would you willingly give up your guiding spirit? It is also important to remember that not all wounds are visible. Some wounds we carry in our hearts, inherited from our parents, passed on to our children. But this discourse is, of course, not just about the Humboldt Forum. It is about museums all over Europe, in France, in the Vatican, in Britain. And I must acknowledge that Germany is the first of the powerful European nations that has made a gesture towards returning the Benin bronzes. But it is also interesting that the announcement said that a substantial amount would be returned, which made me wonder how this would be determined and by whom. And it is equally interesting that it is British colonial loot rather than German colonial loot that is being returned by Germany. But still, it is progress. And Germany's action, this gesture towards righting what is wrong, must be acknowledged. My acknowledgement of it is not to say that the work is done, but that the work has started, and that perhaps a place like the British Museum, and I know that Neil is here, which owns the majority of the Benin bronzes, might perhaps be inspired by the German decision, and that hopefully the British Museum will rethink and that hopefully the British Museum will rethink its policy of retain and explain, which is unacceptable. So this is the Humboldt Forum. A forum usually implies, among other things, a space created for a free exchange of ideas. One can only hope that the Humboldt Forum will live up to its name as a space for true intercultural and transcultural exchange of ideas in mutual respect between the cultures. But this rhetoric of free exchange of ideas must be practical. And by that, I mean such things as travel visas. It must be easy for people from Africa and Asia and Latin America who should participate in these conversations to get travel visas. Because again, we must confront the issue of power. Who tells the story? Who is the teller and who is told about? Who decided that African art should be labeled ethnological? Who has the right to exhibit the other?
Peace, love, and unity, my desire of the African community. So without any apology, without integrity, give thanks and praise unto His Majesty.
Somewhere the Dutch, somewhere the British.
sugar plantation. As peace slave trade, man and no slave. You have to obey and behave. The missionary tell me young we can get saved. The slave master tell me about a shallow grave. But Africans you know we must be free. Africans you know we must be free. Got to give thanks to His Majesty. So without no apology. God, don't you know, don't you know, don't you know, no, no, no. Don't you know, don't you know, don't you know, no, no, no.
Yes, greetings. We still there with you? Yo, don't behave badly in this classroom, you know. So now we want to bring some university information. Now, the reason I say university is that we're taking it to another level. And here this level, we have young people, young men that are sweep the beach. They must sweep sand. I can't understand how this ignorance has come about. Where we're a progression and these hundreds and thousands of African American youths, them young men, are sweeping sand from the beaches. I mean, what kind of sense that is? So when I sweep this sand, go. And the more I sweep, the more sand there. So I want to find out if they don't understand that that is not progression. And what was pitiful is that me see some of them get so hostile and hot underneath the collar. But it's not the collar. Are the uniform them I wear. And them dash the Quran on the floor and put them boots on top it, stamp on top it. Them dash the Quran, them other Quran with them. And the person, somebody asked them for read something. No, they chose the verse and ayah to read from the Quran. But because the person elaborated on it, them get vexed. And are them the one that had the Quran, you know? And them dash it upon the floor and then jump upon it. I mean, I say, look at this ignorance. Ignorance. And are them who are sweep sand from the beaches, them. They are sweeping sand from the beaches, them. And they have them in the Caribbean too, you know. There's a group of them come here in England that set up here in England and them commit some serious, some person lost them life and everything. So, I go get Melika Shabazz. And as you see, Ibn Battuta is up there. It's brothers them like him. May Allah be pleased with him and forgive him any of his faults. That may call the Portuguese and all these other people them. Sight up Africa and know how to journey across Africa, you know. But you let people tell you, say, Arab in slavery. And when I say that Arab never had no slave, we're not saying that, you know. We're not saying that. We're saying that Al-Islam did not enslave we. And that we're trying to show no. and you don't know who Arabs are. So now you have all these children, these young men, that are sweep sand from sea. And I behave with so much ignorance. And I thought that faith and belief was a liberty. That's what I thought. I thought that people has tried find a way to live a life of excellence. We never know, I said them just come with costumes and then a whole heap of blah, 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 and no application of anything. And the way them attack is like them talking to one of them brethren or some man or some woman that sooner or later the woman would, if it's a woman, she would turn around and say, so what do you want me to do now? Eh? What do you want me to do now? You spread me eagle time after time. And I'm tired of it. And look how much children we have. And you not give them nothing. And that me I say no. Keep sweeping the sand from the beaches them. And them have a way of disrespecting Africa and Africans. And when you look upon them, I don't know what them classify themselves as. Seriously. Whoever is responsible for the indoctrination of these young men, I hope when I come upon it soon, never than later, you know, because Dr. York tried it. What him name? Imam Isa. And then him become Yabona Yeshua. And then him become Dr. York. And then him become a whole heap of thing. Eh? When him was Ansarallah and my Sudanese brothers and sisters them was teaching him Arabic and so on. The man was going, as far as we're concerned, going very well. But then he wanted an advantage. And the advantage was he's understanding Arabic, he's reading Arabic, and he's teaching Arabic. What he was being taught and now he's teaching. Okay? So the people are impressed. And that's natural enough. But him take advantage of the people them. But there was somebody from this country that did the biddings of the South, whether than to reason with the brother and show him, if anything, that he may be doing wrong or he should be doing or something, then ridicule him. And then back off. And then change him thing to brand new Nubian Hebrew nation with some Egyptian something. And everything that is taking place right now in America among black people, these are things that he did create in the first place. I him initiate them. He did initiate all this Hebrew thing. And now it has surfaced because him did that and he move on and him tell you say that, you know what I mean, they're part of the schools them and Islam was one school and right and him create the Nawapians and so forth. Why am I saying all of this? If China in their own industrial revolution and the revolution of poverty and everything in them country, it took them 65 years. What are we doing? And may I record that it is 70-something years that our parents were brought to England to help them restructure themselves and rebuild the infrastructure and set up the hospitals and all them social structures that is required. But what did we do for ourselves? We never get independence. And those who them say get independence never got independence with sovereignty. So China took 65 years and fed their people and create all kind of technologies. The Caucasian bright is we who being dumb. So now listen this and listen this carefully and listen this keenly, you know. Seriously, things and times we deal with you. Classroom, we now going to university. Malika Shabazz, Alma Wali, Malcolm X, listen.
And both of these are hard to come by. This one isn't as hard to come by as this one, but this one is called Africa's Lost Past.
Because we're tired and tired trying to make people understand, you know. You understand? That the majority of our people, them were Muslims that came out, that were captured and brought all about the place as slaves. And we're tired trying to tell people, say, this thing called Christianity. Stop trying to say it's African. It's only because you say that because you want to be not African, you want to be part of the European construct. Because if you do your research properly, you will not be saying that. But true, you was taught that in theological school and training. And that you work with because it pays you. You receive a salary and you don't have to do a lot of work. Not real work, you know. You just lie to your soul and lie to us. Yes, that's what is happening. That's what has been happening and that's what is happening. And then when I work for waiting for some pearly gate and everything that y'all are reading, you contradict the understanding of what you're reading and you contradict yourselves. Because God don't want no blood sacrifice and God don't want no human sacrifice and God is never a man and God never send nobody down here and call him, say that he's him and no. When I lose the plot, seriously. So how much years we're going to spend sweeping sand from the beach? Work it out. Why may I use that expression? Sweeping sand from the beach. Come. Alma Wali, salam alaikum.
And both of these are hard to come by. This one isn't as hard to come by as this one, but this one is called Africa's Lost Past, the startling rediscovery of a continent. And this was put together by professors who were commissioned by the nations that belong to the UN after the Africans got their independence. After the Africans got their independence, they...
Oh, I must say something first. When we put Batuta up there, it was his book that the UN commissioned, one of his books, and got translated into English, and the UN use it. This is what Melik also refers to. So that's why you see Batuta's up there, and he's one of our heroes, you know. We who are Muslims. You understand? Yeah.
And both of these are hard to come by. This one isn't as hard to come by as this one, but this one is called Africa's Lost Past, the startling rediscovery of a continent. And this was put together by professors who were commissioned by the nations that belong to the UN after the Africans got their independence. After the Africans got their independence, they expressed complete indignation over the misrepresentation that the African continent had received while they were under the domination of the white man. So they pressured the UN to take some of the leading scientists of this day to delve into the true history of Africa and compile a pamphlet on the lost civilizations. And so this book is a record put out by the UN, endorsed by the UN, which means it has the recognition and endorsement of all civilized, free, and independent nations on this earth. And in this book, it tells you, in a nutshell, about the Islamic civilizations that existed in Africa in the 8th century. The Islamic civilization. You know what that means? Muslim civilization. It means, please, it means that the Muslim empire, that the Muslim religion, that the Muslim culture, Muslim civilization was throughout West Africa in the area called Ghana, Guinea, Ivory Coast, Gold Coast, Nigeria, all down through there. Vast Muslim empire in the 8th century. You know what I mean by 8th century? In the year 700 something. Wait a minute. 8th century. Yeah, right? Yeah, 700 something. This means 800 years before America was discovered. 800 years before America was discovered. 800 years before you were kidnapped and brought here. I have to emphasize kidnapped and brought here because some of y'all think you come over here as pilgrims on the Mayflower. But 800 years before our forefathers were kidnapped and brought here, the white man admits today that the Islamic civilization, the Muslim civilization, stretched throughout Africa. And he has to admit it now. And just to read you one paragraph from this book to show you why he didn't want to go into it. And frankly, in one of our court cases in Buffalo, New York, a couple of weeks ago, the white man, because he couldn't get a Muslim to testify against Mr. Muhammad, he went to Columbia University and found a Jew professor who was supposed to have been an expert on Islam. And he paid this Jew to come as his witness for the state and try and prove that Mr. Muhammad wasn't a real Muslim, and also that there was no Islamic culture in Africa, that it's wrong to tell Negroes that we should be Muslims now because we were Muslim then, because there was no Muslim civilization in Africa. That's what this old man testified to, white man. So naturally, Allah blessed us to have this book from the UN, and he had to recognize it. Here in one paragraph it says, but the ancient capital of Ghana has another claim to distinction. It was the cradle of the Negro Islamic culture which flourished in the Sudan from the 8th century to our own day. Think of that. Bringing to fame such centers as Timbuktu and Djinn. Now, you know, brothers and sisters, you and I never heard of Timbuktu. When I was in school, they taught that Timbuktu talk. I thought Timbuktu was in California. And I went to school in Michigan. They never let us know that Timbuktu was in Africa. But here now they are saying that Timbuktu was one of the centers of learning in an Islamic civilization that existed in Africa 700 or 800 years before America was discovered. This is good. And when the man was trying to say that there was no, he also went on, but they read this paragraph, which said, in some ways, the most valuable of all the Arab sources are the first-hand reports of the two, as far as I know, the only two Arab traveler authors who made extensive journeys through the Western Sudan. And by Western Sudan in those days, they meant Africa. All of Africa was called the Sudan, because Sudan is an Arabic word that means, it's plural for black. When you say Sudan, you're talking about the land of the blacks. So here, it's speaking of these two Arabs who made journeys through the Western Sudan, which means West Africa. Ibn Battuta and Leo Africanus, both were remarkable men. Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Battuta. Notice how they call him. They didn't say Jim Jones. Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Battuta. That's the kind of name you had before you came here. Was born at Tangier in 1304. Pick up on this, 1304. America wasn't discovered until 1492. That's almost 200 years later. And spent the greater part of his life traveling through the Muslim world of his day, visiting Arabia, Asia Minor, Khorasan, India, China, and Indonesia, as well as West Africa. You notice now what he says. He traveled through the Muslim world. And all of these countries that he traveled in were parts of the Muslim world. And he said, as well as West Africa. And see, the white men have taught you and me that in Africa, West Africa, people was eating, they were cannibals, like this cracker tried to say last night on the television. Which he reached in 1352. At this time, the empire of Mali still dominated the western Sudan, and Ibn Battuta gives an extremely interesting and human account of some of its institutions. Here's what he says. Speaking in the year 1352, 100 and some years before the discovery of America, quote, the Negroes possess some admirable qualities. Now what you have to understand is, he didn't say Negroes, because he wrote this in Arabic. And these white professors have translated what Ibn Battuta wrote in Arabic into English. And so they saying Negroes, but wherein Battuta, when he wrote it, he didn't say Negroes, because they didn't call black people Negroes in those days. See, you have to know all this in order to really read between the lines. The Negroes, meaning us, this is before America was discovered, possess some admirable qualities. They are seldom unjust, have a greater abhorrence of injustice than any other people. Let's pick up on it. Here this man, before America is discovered, is talking about black people are different from white people. Isn't that what he said? He said black people are against injustice. Black people are more so against injustice than any other people are against injustice. Why, this follows, you know the white man is not against injustice. He wouldn't have this country if he was. And he wouldn't have you here if he was. You wouldn't be as dumb as you are if the white man was against injustice. Don't be angry when I say you wouldn't be as dumb as you are. Because when I say, I mean we, all of us, we're all in the same boat. And we're dumb. Don't say we're not. How are we going to be in this boat if we weren't dumb? You can't put a wise man in this kind of shape, and we're in bad shape. You don't get in this kind of shape being wise. You get in this kind of shape being dumb. Right or wrong? Let's see.
Yes, so it's, with their university, so I want people them to make notes and search, man, and try overstand, that we are good people. But we need to reclaim ourselves. And we need to start doing for self and develop an infrastructure for tomorrow's children. And stop sitting back and relying on those who despise us and we are thinking that they're going to do something for us. Yeah, they have done something, but that's not what we require. We want freedom, and we want to express our God-given excellence. Right? The scars and the scar tissues and the hurt and the trauma and all those things are within us. We haven't been healed from all the traumas of injustices. We haven't. But we can make those steps to cross those bridges ourselves. I know we put ourselves in this predicament, but God no sleep and he don't wear pajamas, and neither was he crucified and buried and all of these something there. And no person can bear my burden. You understand? No person. And no matter how long you want to say when somebody kill that a person and then resurrect, and that's meant to be a vision of a sign that gives me tranquility on this earth. Well, then it's not true. Because where the tranquility there? How come there's so much war? How come there's so much malpractices? How come? If what you all are being told is so genuinely true, why isn't people like us haven't tasted freedom yet? And the people them who capture our parents, our ancestors, our great ancestors and grandparents, why haven't they repented? I mean, come on. And now you have these children who are sweep sand from around the coastline, the beaches them. And the more them are sweep, the more sand are come. So where is that going? And then them are preach that God, I don't know what them are said, that God have a favorite people. The only favorite people God have, is the people them who are obedient. And I go come back to that. You understand? So we say, Melchizedek Shabazz, Al-Mawali, Malcolm X, we'll come back to that, We're not leave that. We're not leaving that.
Whoa, whoa.
The mighty, 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 mighty Luciana. Wait! Yo! A reggae music, listen.
Whoa, whoa. Just people come together, for the world is traveling, and living ain't easy. The world is traveling. You've got to believe me. The world is traveling, and living ain't easy. The whole world is in trouble. You've got to believe me. That's the way all evils fail. Don't play a hero, you'll end down in hell. You've got your troubles, and I've got
Debo! Yeah, man. Wicked. Snippet. A reggae music,
oh yeah. For the world is trouble, and living ain't easy. The world is trouble.
Man called Dennis Emmanuel Brown, I say. Away, I say, man. Dennis Emmanuel Brown. Yeah.
Oh yeah, now. For the world is trouble, and living ain't easy. The world is trouble. You got to believe it. The
So you go get the youth them, the young man them, for sweep sand from around the shores of the ocean. Eh? What when I set them up for? Eh? When I take them out of general penitentiary, and then when I put them there upon concrete, and then when I get them broom for go sweep sand from around the shores of the oceans, what when I set them up for? Eh? And them young and strong, when I deal with, seriously, something I go on. Yeah? And because when I get them uniform and everything, young people them feel say, when I do something for them, when I set them up, when I wicked, terrible people, terrible, when I set up the youth them, it's only God know when I try to. They must sweep sand. Eh? And soon from now, they going to want something. Because you can only... how long is a piece of string? A rope. Even a chain. How long? So when they want something now, what am I going to do with them? Oh, when I going to take them back, when I take them out from. Yeah? And dispose of some of them for experiments. Africa need them. Yo, you can't give me 1,000 of them, you know. Seriously, make me manage 1,000 of them. Africa need them. Africa can use them. Yes. And I make the word use proper. You understand? We have enough motorway, enough roadway, enough pipes and everything to be laid. You understand? Seriously. And they will get fed and they will learn about Africa. Oh yes, and they will find themselves being appreciated. Yeah man, a little more from them, they realize what love means and what love is. Yes, and they will flex themselves proper as human beings. And they will just keep work upon them, and they will find that there's an excellent that God Almighty had in store for them. Yes, man. Serious thing. So, if we're not just going to get them kill off, because little more from now, they want to change their clothes. And what I going to do? What you going to do? Eh? There's some of them, they're going to see through this thing already. And when I already prop them up for go sex girls them and tell them so them can take what they want, that not work, man. That is rape. That's not working. That's bad information. Right? So now you have police profile upon them. So if them don't do what I want, I will charge them little more down the road. Come on, man. I can see that from over this side here. Huh? And all your courts, them are full with young men. Yes, your courts are full with young men. Just killing and killing and killing. So your thing's not working. And maybe it's working, because that's what I want. It's a shame. It's so much a shame. And it's hurtful to see so much young, strong, healthy-looking black young men, African, black, American young men. I get life sentence and all kind of thing. And the things that they have done, and they're young like our 16, 17, murders, what? And we're talking about Ibn Battuta say, oh, them find Africa. Oh, them find Africa. But you not get them type of information. The Caucasian them, the European them get despicable things about Africa. They not tell about the justice and the humanity and the morality. Huh? Them tell people that we don't have no we just have oral history. Them say everything that's wrong and put themselves up, and then them get themselves 1,000. And 1,000 is a white man that never come from Africa. Them plane just crashed there. And all of a sudden, him know we animals them, him know we landscape, he know we culture, but him invent something which means that him can communicate with the animals them, and we can't, and we come from there, after we home. And then make this sound, and the animals then pay attention. And then swing from our South Africa to right it, and then there Egypt. What? Where everybody try, huh? And a man do it in a day. You're joking, man. You take liberties. Take on all the way back to Tipperton. I want to show and say, watch out. One of my brethren them, all the way from Sheffield, send me this rhythm chat this morning. and I text him back to say that's how we used to do things. So all these type of rhythm tracks, man, I'm gonna take them in Africa. You think I joke? Listen this. Yo, King Rocker.
What a fun in the country.
Teach.
What a fun in the country. Galang, galang, galang. What a fun in the country.
Teach, man, teach.
What a fun in the country. Galang, galang, galang. Most DJ them a talk about them a DJ daddy. Most DJ them a talk about them a DJ daddy. But them not see nothing. We educate way. So come crowd of people while you listen to me. Every day we get a hustle from the SPG. They stop you anyway. Take a damn liberty. Now the Labour Party. When the Tory a kick way out the country, the woman me attack at the iron lady. She get a little help from the NF party. Now the council a take a big liberty. Them a give black people the worst property. Like Nightingale and Kingsley.
Yeah, you see, education is a good thing, you know. And we was full of it, man. Education. You see? I will cooperate. You understand me? Yes, I tell you. So we go again. Come.
Yeah. I've been trying a long time, still I can't make it. Everything I try to do seems to go wrong. It seems I have done something wrong. Why they trying to keep me down? Oh, God bless, no one curse. Thank God I'm not the worst. Better must come one day. Better must come. They can't conquer me. Better must come, yeah. I've been trying a long time, but I can't make it. No one to keep me in helping hand. They only trying to keep me down. Oh, I can make it. Everything I try to do seems to go wrong. It seems I have done something wrong. Why they trying to keep me down? Oh, God bless, no one curse. Thank God I'm not the worst. Better must come one day. Better must come. They can't conquer me. Better must come one day. Better.
At that way I say, man, better must come. You understand? And if we work, you see, we can just get a number of people and we just cooperate together and work. See? Work, sincerely work and have patience. You understand? Before we go under, you see prosperity will come. Serious thing, serious thing. You just have to work and have good intention and patience and we persevere. You understand? Yes. Listen good.
I wouldn't like to be there. No, I wouldn't like to be no in this number. It's a familiar number, kind of people in this number. It's a familiar number, kind of people. 80 million careless Ethiopians. 80 million careless Ethiopians.
Yo, so why is them boys there on the street, them a chat about them a Hebrew, this, that, and that? Not one of them may hear them mention the Falashas. I never hear them say Ethiopia. I never hear them say Sudan. See? And the land of the Sud are Africa. Sudan. And that it meaning the whole of the continent, Sudan. See? Okay. So don't hear them say Falasha. Don't hear them say Ethiopia. Them talk about the Hispanics and this and that and so forth and so forth. Huh? Yes. So y'all have to listen to them carefully now. Because whoever set that something up, whoever set that something up, all the other people that call themselves Pan-African and everything, them not challenge them, you know. They seem like them avoid them like a plague. And they're ours. So why we not avoiding them for? Because when I know something and I frighten. Yes, that's my take on that. Terrible. Terrible. Seriously. So people that want to become modern day Jew. Your great-great-grandfather, them still there in Ethiopia. So if you now want to learn African history and African roots and African culture, too late gonna be your cry. Now tell you no. Serious thing. Serious thing. Yeah? So we have to guidance. Come, Mondale.
Africans must be free by the year 1983, when I and I people shall rejoice on the hills of Mount Zion. Africans must be free by the year 1983. We have worked too hard for
a come. Watch and see. Wait and see. It a come. Guidance. Yes, guidance. So take dedication, you know. Take it good, man. Make good use of it. I tell you, guidance.